Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by the leader of live stream, all things luxury, Christos Garkinos.
You got it right.
Christos, I'm glad I did. Well, Christos has a 25-year career, fashion and media. He's called the Robin Hood of fashion, and he reinvented the resellers market. So we're going to be talking to him about everything that he's up to and how he was working under Richard Branson and everything that he's going to be up to. So, Christos, thank you so much for joining me.
So excited to be in here. I'm very excited. I listened to some of your other shows, and I'm very excited to kind of make the connection and talk to you today.
Well, we're excited to have you. So why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, hi everybody. My name is Christos. I live here in Hollywood, California. I've lived here in LA for almost 30 years, but I come from the 313. I'm a Detroit boy. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. The son of immigrants, of Greek immigrants. And Greek folks tend to have restaurants. So I started working in my parents' restaurant like at age 4, because free children labor, that's what they say. So I kind of was bathed in like the entrepreneurial spirit at a very young age, working in my parents' restaurant called Meatown Inn. And that just kind of gave me the spirit to kind of like really be my own boss at some point in my life. And I've had like a really varied and really fun career, and I've learned so many things. I've gotten knocked down and got back up again, probably 10 times in my life easy. And I'm here today kind of spread the message because my book Covet the Comeback, which is just came out, was a bestseller. Kind of speaks to those moments in your life where you feel like there is nothing there in front of you, and then all of a sudden a path opens. So that's what I'm here for today.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
walk the listeners through your 25-year career in media and fashion, and tell us how you got there.
Okay, well, yeah, it's actually longer than that now when I think about it. But so basically, I was in Detroit, and then basically, I got a job right out of school at a company called Clorox in Oakland. So, I learned this a thing called brand management. It's very corporate. I love fashion from a young age. I used to work at a store called Lord and Taylor. I love fashion. My dad looked like a rock star, so I always watched him getting dressed, and but I needed to get a job. So my first job was very conservative. I showed up in a seersucker suit the first day thinking that was conservative, and they sent me home because it was too liberal there. So I had to like go get changed into a gray suit. But I made it try to make it look as possible. So I always had like a fashion blood in me, wanting to do something. And then from that job, I was accepted to Harvard Business School to go to business school at Harvard. And I went there and one thing, first off, I'm Greek and I'm gay. So those are two important things in my life, Greek and gay. And so this was 1990, I went to Harvard, and I already was out of the closet at that point at age 23. And I recognized I had to go back in the closet to go to school there at that point. Obviously today that'd be a different story. So I decided to take a pause in Harvard. And then one of my old bosses at Clorox called me and said, "Hey, I'm starting at Disney." And Disney was the hottest company in the world in like 1992, 1993. And so I moved to Los Angeles, actually in 1990, and then I worked at Disney, which was the best company to work for at that point. Like literally, it was booming. And so Disney, I was doing so well there that they shipped me across to London to open up all the Disney stores across Europe. Now, I loved it. So you can imagine working with like costume characters and stores, and we started in the UK, and then I ended up opening 45 stores across 6 countries, being the head of marketing at a very young age, at 28. So that taught me about entertainment and marketing, and I loved it. But like the one thing I loved more than all that fashion too was music. I mean, I love music. My parents had a jukebox in my restaurant growing up, and so I really wanted to get into music. And I would go. Do you remember these Virgin Megastores? I don't know. Where do you live? Where do you live? What city are you in? New York or?
I'm originally from Louisiana, but living in Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, no way. My partner's from Monroe, Louisiana.
Yeah.
and Wichita. I was there once actually in Wichita, and so one thing I love to do is I go to the Paris. I go to the Virgin Megastore, which is these big stores that used to sell these things called CDs. A lot of people don't know what those are anymore, but CDs. And the one in Paris I love so much. And like, when you're young and whatever, you talk about like you're trying to manifest like your dream job. And my dream job was to work for Richard Branson, who I think is the biggest and best entrepreneur out there in the world. And I said, I know my job would be it's the vice president of marketing or head of marketing for Virgin Megastore back in America for Richard Branson. And everybody's like, well, good luck with that. They only have one store and, blah, blah, blah. 6 months later, I'm on a really bad blind date. Bad, 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 bad blind date. And I'm still living in London. And I like lie and say I'm sick. And so I go to the Virgin Megastore in London and I see this, there's this thing called Billboard magazine. Billboard's like the Bible of like the music business to this day. And I used to love watching the charts and seeing who was going up and down the charts. I'd get that magazine out, and there'd be this is like a magazine that I picked up like 4 weeks later from when it was first published, and they have like the want ads in the back. So I like flip through the want ads just to see whatever, and there it was, head of marketing, Virgin Megastores, North America. And I was like, I think I may have screamed in the store. I was like, oh my God, this is like what I manifested. I got to get this job. So the next day, because there was no cell phones or, anything internet wise at that point, I faxed in my resume and I happened to be in LA the week later and I got the job. And that's where my life really changed. It was when I left Disney and they didn't want me to leave, but I ended up working for Richard Branson for 7 years. And during that time, here in LA, we opened up all the Virgin Mega stores across the country. I hobnobbed every night with every music celebrity you ever could imagine, from Janet Jackson to Madonna to Cher to rock bands, and definitely like was living the life here in LA, and was able to dress finally the way I like to dress. So it didn't have to be conservative because at Disney I still had to wear like all my Disney stuff. So that job was great until I was on Fox, and I was the head of marketing, so I was always on television talking about what was going on. So I was on Fox News, and they asked me about like, hey, Christos, there's this new thing called digital music, a thing called Napster. I'm like, what is Napster? Napster, digital music. This will never ever affect my job or what we do. Well, I was out of a job in about a year because of course that came in, and now everybody. Some people still, I guess, I don't know about you, I still do like vinyl, but CDs are gone, so those all went away, and then so I was kind of stuck. And those moments of your life, like, now what do I do, right? So I'm sure you've had those moments in your life. You're like, what's next, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So. Yeah, so what I did was, so what I did was, I had started a small resale shop on the side, selling like the clothes of celebrities. This is before, this before everybody. One of the first people to do it with a partner of mine, and I said, hey, I'm out of a job. I'll come stay there for 6 months. There's a store in LA, and I'll just hang out for 6 months and then figure out my next step. Well, I ended up staying there like 13 years, and we kind of became like the mecca for all things, fashion, and I loved it, and resale, and it led to a TV show. I had my own show on Bravo called Dukes of Melrose. That was first season, and the whole reason why I did the show, like, my best friend's Garcelle Beauvais, who's just a housewife on Housewives, and she just she loved the show, but she was great for the show to give her a platform to do other things. And my whole goal in life from a kid, other than Richard Branson, was to have my own line on the Home Shopping Network. I'd watch it for hours, and like I applauded people and wanted people, and my manager at the time, we were working on something. I said, listen, I'm going to go do the show for Bravo, but I needed to be tied to like me having my own show on the Home Shopping Network. So we went and pitched them the idea, and another dream came through, and that's when I got my line in the Home Shopping Network. And that was in 2013, and it was like the dream of a lifetime until it all wasn't a dream. So that was took me to about age 48, 49, where like everything I touched basically touched to gold whenever I did something. So it was a good time in my life, with fashion and everything. And then things took a turn, which I talk about in my book, for the worse for some years. And so this last 10 years has been about like kind of clawing back to not the top, but like to be back where I was before.
Well, talk to the listeners about your book and your live stream. Tell the
Uh-huh.
listeners where you can, where what we can expect when we read your book, where to pick it up, and I'll talk about your live stream as well if you got
Sure.
still got it going on.
Oh yeah, gotta go. Yeah. So basically, like, 5 years ago, I was, I had like some personal stuff come up, and it's a detail in my book cover the comeback, and I was $1 million in debt. I just had to, and so what I was doing is I was doing trunk shows in different cities like Detroit, Omaha, taking my Chanel and Hermes bags. That's why I do that. So I sell vintage goods in these cities. I was actually in Omaha, Nebraska, which is one of my biggest cities. I actually did shows. I don't think I did a show in Wichita. I did something. I did in Kansas City. I obviously did some trunk shows there. But 2020 came, and I was screwed. I was like, oh my gosh, like now what? And I was coming off the road because of the pandemic, because that my whole business was based on that. I'm like, am I going to move back to Michigan? Like, what am I going to do? And so what happened was someone said take a look at Instagram Live. I'm like, okay, what is Instagram Live? And I turned it on, and then, do you know D Nice, the DJ? So he had like 100,000 people watching him. Remember, Aubrey was watching him like on Instagram. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. I ended up meeting him, he's a great guy. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna go sell my bags, And so I went live March 23rd, 2020, and on Covet by Christos. It's called Covet by Christos, Covet by Christos on Instagram. And 8 people watched, 3 of whom were family members. No one was watching. And I was like, I got to figure this out. So I just kept coming back every night at 5 o'clock, and it kept growing. And I built this network finally. And now, so we bring in people who have things to sell, whether it be clothing or books or beauty, anything that we deem right for our network, right? The things I would covet. And we've grown to be the largest luxury live streamer on Instagram or anywhere. We have over $200 million in sales since inception. So it's been this crazy successful business. And I've got like a great following, a great community. And so you can every day, up to 8 to 10 hours a day, you can tune into Covered by Christos and maybe find your favorite Chanel bag, or find a beautiful blouse, or find the latest beauty product, or find something for the home. So it's kind of a modern day home shopping network, but on that's live stream on Instagram.
Okay, well, kind of tell the listeners about your book, what we can
Of
expect.
course. Uh, the
Okay.
book the book is a great read. It's funny. I definitely I kind of alluded to earlier. I had the hard time in my life in like my late 40s, and I went off the deep end. So I had to become sober in my life. So May 2016, I became sober in my life. It's a lot. My sobriety is talked about a lot in the book, about like how it's helped me come back, and I celebrate 10 years next year of being sober. And so the book really takes me through that, when I was age 4, starting like working for Greek parents in my whole life, and the people I've met, the celebrities I've met. It's a really funny read, I think. But you also will learn about like when you're, there's been moments in my life where I'm like, God, like, please show me the way. And like I feel like, when you're able to now, what I'm doing now is I'm testifying. When I got sober in May 2016, because my life had been out of control, I thought that by getting sober, everything would just magically get better. And it wasn't, because in 6 months of getting sober, when you think your life's going to turn around, my mom died. My 2 favorite aunts died. My dog died. I lost my business, and I got a divorce in 6 months. And I felt like I was in a train wreck, for 6 months. And finally, I came out of it, and I kept saying, "Why me, God? Why me? Why me?" And it's why me is like what I'm talking today. I'm able to talk about this and go like, I came through that. I had faith. I stayed in solution. And so the book kind of gives you those tools to talk about like how to like stay in solution, how when something's facing you in in adversity, like how to get around it, how to ask for help, all these sort of things. And it's a really fun read. So that's what it's about. It's available on Amazon and Barnes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you reshaped the reseller industry that they call you the Robin
Yeah.
Hood of fashion, so kind of talk to the listeners about that and how you did it.
Oh yeah. So, I actually call myself that. It's basically like, I take from the real rich and I sell it to the slightly real, less rich, right? And so basically, you come out and you get deals, you get clothes at 60 to 70% off. So resale is like, resale was like a little baby, business like 26 years ago when I was there at the beginning. And now it's booming. It's actually like, it's booming. It's up 30% every year. So you can see what's happening in terms of like, the Poshmarks of the world, the eBays of the world, the Vestiaires of the world. Everybody's doing it. So, but I'm the leader in it. So people trust me. And that's what Covered by Christos is all about.
All right. Well, let the listeners know about any upcoming projects that you're working on that we need to be aware of besides your
Oh,
book.
the book is great. There may be a little TV adaptation of the book happening, which is very exciting. And we're in talks with some Hollywood producers. We're plugging away. We're getting into new categories. We're just expanding and testing. And so, like, 30% of all um, retail in China is done this way, live streaming. In the US, it's just 0.5%. It's like baby stage. So there's so much growth to be had in this category. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
And that live streaming is done on TikTok because I actually interviewed somebody who does it like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. TikTok. We're starting to get on TikTok. Most of our platforms on Instagram. We're gonna be doing our website and some other platforms. But yeah, we think. I didn't realize I didn't know what I was doing. I was there before TikTok and whatnot. I had no idea what I was doing. And apparently, like I disrupted things. So there you go.
We'll throw out your contact info so people can keep up with everything that you're up to.
Sure. So I'm available. You can find me at Covet by Christos on Instagram. COVETBY. My first name Christos. CHRISTOS. And you can find my book Cover the Comeback on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts for the listeners.
I just feel like, from a message standpoint, just if when you're feeling down and you feel like, you're kind of like wondering like, why is me? Or like, if you're too much in your head, one thing I always do is I tell people like, just go ask somebody else how they're doing. Get outside your head, like get into someone else's life and ask them how they're doing to take your mind off what's going on with you. And I would also say that just don't listen to naysayers. My good friend is a woman named Anastasia, the Brow Queen, and I went to her book launch yesterday, and she kept talking about like, just do it, just get in, don't think too much. Like, if I did this and I did that, and like you just gotta jump in the water and kind of just, and then the universe does take you where you need to go. So yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, check out Covered by Christos on Instagram, COVET. Check out that live stream.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe you'll find something you're looking for.
Yeah.
Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And for any feedback, guest suggestions, or if you yourself would like to be a guest on the Living the Dream with Curveball show, visit www.curveball337.com. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Christos, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's lots of fun. I appreciate it.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.